This is Nash, and this is his roadmap to success, and this is a bully stick. You should not give your dogs, this is a bully bite actually. The guardians here know this, but a lot of people give the dogs rawhides, which will actually sit in a dog's digestive tract. They're hard to digest. They also soaked in bleach and formaldehyde. Ammonia. This is a bully stick. It's a dry bull penis, and they're very healthy for dogs to get. Go to the Green Spot. I mentioned I gave the Guardians a discount card for the Green Spot. It's one of my favorite stores. They sell these. My dog's favorite thing is a kneecap, a cow's knee. And they'll chew on it. You get about 5 or 6 chews out of it. This, they're going to sit down once and chew it and ingest it. So I would have some things like this. So when you do have guests come over, first of all, we're going to talk about, we talked about in the other video about tips to, same sort of principle. If you already have guests come over, exercising them first sets them up for success. How about we lay down? You got to chew it while you're laying down next to me. That's the rules. Looks better in the shot, buddy. If a guest come over and then he gets a kneecap, he's distracted. He's practicing not jumping up on the guest, not invading their personal space, and all the rest of that stuff. Now, he does like to invade personal space. So I want you to, dogs have 3 zones. They have a bubble of personal space, like a 3-foot bubble. 3 feet to 11 feet is called social space. Anything out after that is called public space. Just like us, we're kind of more particular when people get close to us. And so for dogs, there's nothing wrong with the dog being this close or on your lap if I invite him up. I invited him up here. But he doesn't do that. He just jumps up and gets in people's face, and he gets probably petted for that or reward. Even if we say, stop it, get away from me, that's rewarding. Remember, good attention for dogs and bad attention, pretty much the same thing. It's validating. So when you're sitting here, what you might want to do is have little snacks or just practice. We talked about in this video above, and right after the video, is recreating situations where we can help the dog practice the behavior we want them to have. So if we want to not get in people's faces, we have to practice that. So you can use those escalating consequences I went over. So again, if so in that 3-foot bubble, what I'd like you to do is start establishing a 3-foot bubble of personal space unless you invite him in. So if he comes in, invades that personal space without your permission, you're going to stand up and march towards him if you need to, and then take 1 step back, pause. 1 step back, pause. Turn this way, pause, and then sit down, pause. So remember, each step, you'll put a pause in between each step as a way of saying that's a communication to you. And if he starts coming forward, you rush towards him. So it's the same principle I showed you with the kitchen boundary, but except we're going to do it here, and whatever he does with you is what he's going to do with everyone. So he has to learn good boundaries from you guys first, then he can start doing it with guests. And you can do it for a guest. Let's say I'm a guest and he got right in my personal space. You can come over, put your back to me, and march towards him and establish that invisible boundary. But it's best if you practice it with yourselves first. Now, he is a high energy dog. He's only 2, and so I went over some creative ways of exercising the dog. I'm going to summarize them really quick, but if you have any questions about them, let me know and we can go over in more detail. So the first one is a doggy stairmaster, as I call it, throwing the treats up and down the stairs. Show him you have a treat, throw it to the bottom of the stairs. When he gets it, say Canada or whatever the word is that means go down south. Remember, dogs can read facial expressions, so we want to use fun command words. The treat goes in the mouth first. They should hear the command word immediately after. A lot of people command word and then treat. It needs to be the other way around. That makes the command word associated with the treat, and they're more likely to listen to that command word. Okay, so basically, and because I don't know if it's his eyes are not that great, or he might just have hair in his eyes, but if you go to, there's a place called Carpetland, 110th and Maple. They sell carpet. It's these really nice, super duper nice houses, and they'll have a section like 11 foot by 7 feet of like $25 a yard carpet. They'll say for $5 at the door. So I'd get a light colored one and put it at the bottom of the stairs like white. So when you throw that treat, he can see it instantly when he goes down there and gets it. So he runs down and gets it, say Mexico, call him back at the top, give him another one, call it Canada, throw him, go up and down those stairs until he says you're crazy with an empty stomach the first time. And so you want to max him out, count each down up as 1 so you know what his maximum number is. And also you can time it so you know how long it takes. 5 minutes on the stairs is usually equivalent to about a half-an-hour walk. And you can do it inside during a snowstorm, or if it's late at night, or in your PJs, or if you have guests come over. And remember, when he is being naughty, that often means he probably needs a little exercise. So, all right, so the doggy stairmaster would be one. Make sure you do that with an empty stomach, though. Remember, their stomach can tear and it can be fatal if it's full of food. About an hour after, hour and a half before he gets exercise, or I just feed him after the exercise. Now, after exercise, he needs at least 10 minutes to recover before the next thing happens. Otherwise, that'll be almost worse behavior from him. So the doggy stairmaster is one. He chased the laser around a little bit. Now, remember, there's only so much that you'll get, but that's a good one that you can use. Scent games, Google scent games. There's a lot of different things you can hide treats. There's different versions of it. But activating the nose is very enriching for the dog. For walks are great. Follow the video step steps in the video above to make sure he's calm. You can get him a doggy backpack and put like bottles of water on either side. That extra weight makes the activity burn more energy. It also gives him a job. And remember, on walks, sniffing burns more energy than walking. Running burns more energy than walking does. But on a walk, we often are hurrying them along instead of letting them sniff. Sniffing, as long as it's appropriate, he's not getting in trouble, is what we're looking to do. That's why scent games are so helpful. I'd also recommend getting a snuffle mat, a Mega Paw treat ball, and look for some other treat dispensing toys on Amazon or Chewy. Some of them are super easy, he'll figure out right away, but if you feed him through those toys, it boosts his self-esteem because he's earning those treats. It actually is soothing, it's calming, and it is a form of exercise that you get just from doing something you're going to do anyways. Does he eat all his food, or does he leave food in his bowl?
No, he eats all his food.
Okay. Dogs do it in the order of their rank, so I'd like whoever's feeding him to eat something first, something in 5 more bites. A piece of chip, cracker, piece of celery, something along those lines, something crunchy preferably, then you give him permission to eat. So put the food in his bowl, he's not allowed to eat it. I talked a little bit about delayed gratification. So he sees the food, he can't eat it, then you eat something in 5 or more bites, then you invite him over. When he takes his first bite of food, come up with a funny command word, call it sushi, pasta, garats, whatever you want to name, come up with a fun word. So every time he takes his first bite of food for 3 months, he hears steak, or whatever the word is. That becomes his command word to eat. I would also do it for water. Even though he doesn't need to learn how to drink, you might get in a situation where he has meds and he doesn't need to drink. So every time he takes a drink of water, call it Corona, or whatever you want to say. Remember, fun command words. You might want to come up with a list of the official command words. When you were calling him when he was outside, you used about 7 different words. Come here, over here, dog's name. Dogs, we say not dogs, but humans say between 2,000 and 11,000 words a day. The more words we make him memorize, the harder it is for him to understand. It's much easier for us to just say come instead of come here, over here boy. Now he's got to listen to all these versions of words, and it slows down his learning process. Saying just the command word can help the dog learn up to 83% faster. So come up with a list of the official command words, and if somebody's saying the different, you're like, come here, and your wife's like, vocabulary, thanks, babe, come. So it just helps us consolidate. Okay, let's see if he'll stay here and eat it while he's eat on the couch. Okay, I'm going to sit up and eat that one. You're taller than I am. All right, so those are some ways to exercise. And remember, exercise should be done every about 2 to 4 hours. If he's being naughty, that means he probably needs some exercise. If you're going to do these or the exercises we went over, getting him some physical exercise is a good way to set him up for success, just give him that 10 minutes to recover. We also talked about some rules. The first rule is not being allowed in the furniture, because for dogs, the higher they sit, the more rank or social status they have. I'd recommend getting the letter X, M-A-T-S, on Amazon or Chewy. They're about 11, 13 bucks a piece. You need one for about every cushion. And that way, like, oh, Nash, I'd let you up here. Remember the things there. What can I do? That way, the couch is the VIP section of the club. You guys are the VIPs, and he's the general admission person. You can always go down to his level and hang out with him. He just can't come up to your level. Now remember, breaking a rule is a very confusing and frustrating thing for a dog. So if you want to let him up on the furniture after 3 or more months, I wouldn't recommend. I would, make sure that he's not trying to get up. But after that period of time, if you would like to invite him up, that's okay. If you would like to, because you want to, not because he did something right. If you want to reward him, pet his belly, give him a bully bite, take him for a walk, play fetch, or whatever the case may be, don't break a rule to reward him, because it causes them to want to do it again. And it creates a lot of frustration. Now remember, for the fetch, when he does come up to you with a ball and you're going to throw things in the house, say fetch 3 times. Fetch as I throw it, fetch when he picks it up, and then have a treat or pet him when he brings it back to you, and say fetch the 3rd time. So now when you're out in a park and you say fetch, he knows what the game is associated with. Even though we think it's the same thing. I threw the ball. He's like, but I'm in a park. There's squirrels, there's rabbit, there's all sorts of stuff for me to sniff. I'm not interested in doing it there. And try not to fight against the wave. If he doesn't want to do it, don't try to push it, because then last time we tried to play fetch, you got all pissed. I don't want to do that anymore. So make sure it's always a positive. Okay, so no furniture for at least 90 days. It takes 66 days to form a behavior pattern. So I suggest these rules are a minimum in place for 90 days or 3 months, and be very militant and strict about it for the first month to really get him jump started. After that, he'll kind of get in a habit, and you just have to do a little bit of maintenance. Let me see. Other rules, sit at the door. Go to the door, tell him to sit 1 time. He has 3 seconds to sit. Dogs learn through repetition, consistency, and good timing. 3 seconds is the window. And there's a big difference between 1 second and 3 seconds. So you want to get as close to that 1 second as you possibly can. But if I go to the door and I tell him to sit, and he doesn't sit, and I say sit, 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 well, why do I have to listen to you? Because he'll say it 100 times, I sit when I want to sit. In this case, he wants to go outside, I don't want to go outside. So I have some leverage in the situation. So I'm going to use that to my advantage. I go to the door and I tell him to sit once, If he doesn't sit, I walk away, make sure you're seated in the nearby area and wait for 1 minute. After 1 minute, go back and command him again 1 time. If he doesn't sit this time, I walk away and sit down for 2 minutes, next time 4 minutes, 8 minutes, and so on. As soon as he sits, then I either fly the door open or I start the process of letting him out. Most people train their dogs to jump at the door because that's what gets us to go let him out. This will teach him to sit at the door. At first I do it with whatever direction he really wants, but eventually I do it with both directions. I would do it with every door in your house, and go to the car, going out of the car, all the rest of that stuff. And waiting when a dog is overexcited for them to calm themselves down is really helpful. If you take him to the dog park and he's all excited in the car, just sit there and wait. And wait for him to calm himself down. You're only going to get what you want for being calm. Remember, excited is not happy when it comes to dogs. It can be, but often it means they're stressed or overstimulated. And that's when he's going to make more mistakes. Let me see, other rules. If we're eating a snack in here, I would shuffle the carpet around the table or whatever, and he's not allowed to go on this carpet when we're eating food. The rest of the time, you can come and go as you please. And you should practice having some snacks here so you can actually practice that activity when you have the time to do it. That way, when you have a guest come over and you have some fondue out there and you're like, man, Nash isn't going to eat. No, of course, we had doggone problems come by that showed us how to teach. But again, we teach the dog how we want them to behave, like the video I talked for the door over here, breaking it down to individual steps, the easiest version possible, and then helping him practice each step over and over again until he knows how we want him to behave throughout whatever the activity is. So when a human's eating, you should not be within 7 feet of the human. You should not get any more people food from the plate. If you want to give it to him, put it off to the side, put it in his bowl, and give it to him the next day if you want to. But I would really recommend it, aside from carrots or broccoli or a little fat from steak, I usually recommend not giving them too much people food. Our food is very rich. It's not really very good for them. A lot of times it gives them gas anyways. Let me see. Not allowed in the kitchen when preparing food. Remember to show your significant other how to enforce that boundary and practice that. And remember to do the warm up. So if you're going to cook a meal, go in there, turn and enforce the boundary and walk back inward, and just microwave a piece of roast beef or bacon or whatever to put on the counter, and then do your meal prep cook, watching him out of the corner of your eye. You cross that threshold, you rushed right towards him using those escalating consequences. We also went over petting with a purpose and passive training. Leaders tell, followers ask. If he nudges at me or paws at me, he's telling me what to do. If I pet him, anything your dog's doing when you pet is what you're rewarding. So I pet him when he's doing that, then he gets reinforced. He thinks, yeah, I'm the boss of him. I tell David what to do and he listens. So instead, when he nudges you, give him a counter order, tell him to sit or lie down. Don't practice the shake anymore. Crash. That's passive training. We're not to that point yet. So basically, if he complies within 3 seconds, then I pet him, and I preferably pet a dog under a chin. When a dog is nose in the air is a good, proud body mechanic. Insecure dogs have a nose down, and he's just looking down there. But if we reach over the dog's head and pet them, a lot of times they create that nose down orientation. They start cowering, and that can actually lessen their self-esteem. So what we want to do instead is pet him under the chin if all things are equal, and never pet on top of the head. So if he tells me what to do, and nothing happens. If I tell him, but other than give him a counter order. If I tell him to sit and he does sit, I pet him on the chin and say sit. If he doesn't sit, I show him I have other things going on. Playing hard to get, remember, works great for dating as well as for dogs. So after, you can't have those. Your dad's going to give these to you later. If he complies, he gets a reward. If he doesn't, nothing happens. Remember, for dogs, good attention, bad attention, same thing. Also remember, anything your dog is doing in your presence that you don't specifically disagree with is your seal of approval. So not saying no is very similar to saying yes. Now, in some situation, he's barking at me, he's trying to get my attention. So if I correct him there, that gives him what he wants. If he's barking the window, I would go over, put my butt to the window, walk towards him, and increase the distance between him. And anytime he's reacting, the best thing you do is increase the distance. Sometimes you have to move him out of sight. But if he's barking there and you're just like, stop it! It's nowhere near as powerful for you to silently stand up and walk over and burn the energy to move him away. Remember, burning the energy is a form of currency for dogs. All right, come here, buddy. All right, so he nudges me. I say, sit. Sit. I pet him under his chin. I pet as much or as little as I want. Now, he likes to put his paws on me, on you. So if you reach for him, he puts his paw back, like that, pull back. And when it goes down, re-engage. When it comes back up. So you're going to do a lot of this back and forth, but he's going to learn putting my paws on them stops them from petting me. That's the opposite of what I want. Maybe I'll keep falling on the floor and I'll keep on getting petted, which he will. So for petting with a purpose, after a while, he'll realize I can't tell the humans what to do anymore. I have to ask. And better than ask, I have to pay for the privilege of their attention. And I do it through a payment or currency of obedience. And he'll start coming and sitting in front of you to prepay for the attention or laying down. When he does, make sure you reach over and pet him and say sit or lay down or whatever the command word is, and just use the first word. Remember, dogs hear the first word we say. Not good sit, just sit. And not sit, because they hear inflection. That makes it a completely different command word. Sit. So basically, if he does what I want, he gets paid. If he doesn't, nothing happens. He doesn't get punished, but he doesn't get his reward. That's probably not very good for camera. That's all right. Now, if remember to use the watchword of paycheck. So if he comes up and if somebody comes in the room, you see that they say you're petting him and he's standing. We say paycheck. That means I suspect you might have forgotten to pet with a purpose. That person, even if they did it right, should stop petting. Tell him to sit. If he sits, they pet him on his chin, say sit, and say, actually, babe, I asked him to sit and he missed it, but thanks for reminding me. I do forget to pet without a purpose. And even if you want to pet him, you should still tell him to sit so he earns it. That boosts his self-esteem, increases his respect for you as an authority figure, and it helps him practice the things that you want him to do. Passive training, which is what I was just talking about, is waiting for him to organically offer the behavior. You mentioned on the trail that he likes to run ahead of you and then stop, and he waits for you to catch up with him, and then he runs ahead of you again. So flip that. So when you're walking, once he runs ahead, once he stops, stop yourself. If he doesn't come to you within a couple seconds, turn around and start walking this way. When he comes to you, give him that treat and say, come. Now that's on a trail, but I would set it up for doing it here. Every time he comes to you in the house, pet him and say, come. Every time he sits, pet him and say, sit. Every time he lays down, pet him and say, down. Name all your individual toys. Now I have a watchword for this as well, because what we're doing really is celebrating the things the dog does that we actually do like. So every time, if he comes to me and I didn't see it, you could tell me, celebrate. That means I think you just missed an opportunity to pet your dog. So if somebody says celebrate to me, I look at the dog and whatever he's doing is what I sit, because he's sitting. If he's standing, I would assume he came and pet him and say, come. If he's laying down, it's pretty obvious. He has a toy, whatever it is. So now we're putting in context the things that we want. And you can do funny things like this. You can call it this bridge, London Bridge, or whatever it is. It's a funny thing. So you say London Bridge and he does this weird yoga posture thing. Your friends laugh. So that's why I have a word for eating, a word for drinking, a word for the dog bed, a word to go up the stairs, down the stairs. We're putting all these things in context that allows us to have a richer form of vocabulary with the dog. Now, I also went over the escalating consequences. I don't go over those on camera. You have to hire me for that sort of thing, ways of disagreeing with the dog, but make sure you use those. And remember, there's 4, so you're going to use them in a lap. So you always start out with the hiss. I guess I'll give you the first one, but don't be afraid. And then go to this next one, next one, next one. And sometimes you'll combine them. You might hiss, stand up, and march all at the same time if it's really dangerous or if you really want to make your point across. But always use the lowest level of stimulation necessary. Go around the house and teaching him to exit each area. So if I want him to leave this carpet, I want to put in context. So I throw a treat there. When he goes and gets it, I say out. So I'm putting in context, vacating this area is rewardable, and I'm assigning a command marker to it, in this case, out. And I want him to also go that way. So I throw another one that way. Out. So this way I can teach him to leave the carpet. You can come back to me. I can teach him to leave the carpet there or there. So I do every doorway and area in your house. Now, I mentioned in the other video above, you might want to put painter's tape down. I don't want to make it look like a gymnasium, although it might be familiar for you. But put it down like between your living room and your dining room, in the areas where there's not a line of delineation. So it makes it easy for him to see where that is, and then help him practice that. Remember, when you're walking back away from him, stop between each step and keep your hips pointed at him. As soon as you turned your hips, he started coming in, or if you dip down. And don't be afraid to set up those practice sessions. When you're cooking, go in there and microwave the bacon like I showed you, and then do your meal prep cook. Take all the ingredients out of the fridge, pull the pots and pans out, and you're watching him out of the corner of your eye. You cross the threshold, you're rushing at him. And then eventually when he sits or lies down, then you can put that stuff away and go through your actual cooking and meal prep. Trying to think if there's anything else we went over. I think that's about it, isn't it?
I think it is.
Now, if you do want to do that loose leash walking class, make sure you message Becca, our booking coordinator, and she'll add you to the waiting list. We're going to probably start in March or April, and it's a 4-week class, about an hour each week, and then you practice during the week. And it doesn't teach them to walk with a heel, but teaches them not to lunge. And we've had dogs that will try to kill every squirrel, and they can walk through a plethora of squirrels, and they don't care. It's not they don't care, but they're not lunging. They learn that the lunge is not going to get them to what we want. Try to avoid pulling him whenever possible because, again, the opposition reflex, he's programmed to push or pull against pressure. Come. That's not quite passive training. It might be kiss. But also, when I say the command word, I always say it twice. Sit. Sit. And again, detaching and disengaging when he does things you want. Sit. I use this as a kind of to put the dog over the head. That's kind of how I get a lure to get him to sit. If he's not listening, you gotta go. See how I was interested in the head, and then go arc over the head. He sits down, sit. and then he does the paw thing, which is why I recommend you don't practice the shake anymore.
Right.
All right, Nash, come here so everybody can see how handsome you are. Sit. Sit. This is Nash, and this is Nash's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.